All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back again. Thank you. If you're new to this channel, this sound, I'm Donna, and I'm excited to have you join us here today. As usual, I'm really excited for every guest that I have because everybody has a different story. And the whole purpose of what I'm doing is that I want to encourage others in their times of trial, in their times of struggling, in their times of difficulties. I want people to know, and especially in these days, that there is hope for you, no matter what your situation. And I'm just really hoping that these videos will reach people who really need a word of encouragement, whether it's something you're going through medically, your physical body, your mind, your whatever, your spirit. And I just want you to be encouraged and uplifted. And I want to reach as many people as possible. So please remember to hit the like button, thumbs up button, to like, comment, subscribe, share. We've got to get pushed up in the algorithm. We're pretty new. So just, help us out here. But anyway, yeah, here we go. This is Angeline Constantinou. Did I say it right?
Yes.
That's the part that I get the most nervous about is when I have to say people's names. I was like, I don't want to mess it up. But
That's okay.
anyway, so Angeline has a story for us, and she's going to share that with us. But anyway, let's start with a little bit of a background on you.
Yes. And thank you so much, Donna, for inviting me to your show today. And you would be surprised. Like some people mispronounce my name, but you were perfect. Or they butcher it. It's okay. All good. All right. So everyone, thank you so much for um, for supporting Donna and her show. So a little bit about me and my background. So my name is Angeline Constantinou. So I once upon a time, I used to live in New York City, and I have been working in the direct sales industry, for many years. I went to college in Minnesota. Then I decided to move to New York in 1985 because I wanted to experience New York from Minnesota. So I was born and raised in Minnesota. So when I moved to New York, I was going to college and I was working in my uncle's diner, to support myself and to pay for college because my major at that time was business administration marketing. So lo and behold, I met who I thought was going to be the love of my life. Once upon a time I think it was 1987. So we met at church. They had what's called a young adult league group out of the Greek Orthodox Church, because that's where I used to go. And we went out to dinner, and it was just like a friendly conversation, just friends. And then
Mhm.
things got a little bit, then he wanted to go out with me. So we were dating, and he was living on a 32-foot Carver Mariner yacht in New Rochelle, New York, which is about 15 minutes from New York City, right on the harbor. So I decided to move out of my uncle's house and move in with him. Um, so we lived together. We made a joint decision at that time that I was going to work in his business, which was advertising direct mail, and we made six-figure income. So we had a place in New York City, and so I would go out on the road, and I was bringing in sales. We were working with restaurants, and we weren't married at the time. We were just living together. But
Mhm.
then we decided to move to the Hudson Valley of New York. So I don't live there now, but that's where I used to live, in the
Mhm.
Rhinebeck area. So we decided to move upstate New York and get married in at the Justice of the Peace in I think it was in August of 1989. So things were fine and everything, and I didn't see anything wrong with him at the time, because what they do is they mask it.
Yeah.
So we worked together. We were commuting back and forth to New York once a week, And then he started to, then things started to happen while I was still bringing in money. Um, he was, close to retiring. He wanted to retire from his business. I think it was in 2000. Um, so, that gave me an opportunity to go out and work in corporate America. But before that happened, something unfortunate happened. As time went on, he started to show signs of narcissism, and there was gaslighting, there was manipulation. He wanted to control the money. After all that, because we were making six-figure income every year, and people thought that we were the Hollywood couple, which appeared on the outside, but not behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
There was arguing, there was fighting. Um, and in December of 1999, I will never forget this. So something unfortunate happened. So I was lying in bed with my robe and I was crying because he was just insulting me. I don't remember what he said, but he was insulting me, demeaning me, um, accusing me of things that I never did. So, um, so I decided to get up out of bed, out of, our queen bed. And I said, I'm just going to walk into the other room because we had bought a house. So it was a 4-bedroom home. So I said, I'll just go into the other room and just sleep, try and go to sleep. But this was at around 11 p.m. at night. So I did not make it into the other room. He took me from behind the neck. He grabbed me and he threw me against the wall. I hit my nose. My face was swollen,
Oh dear.
black and blue. I was bleeding and I fell backwards. I landed like basically on my back
Wow.
and I was lying there. Then forget about it. I was crying, bleeding. And I just looked up to the ceiling. I said, God, please save me because I thought I was going to die that night. And what's not unusual is a minute later, he carried me down the stairs and we were on our way to the emergency room. And I was in the emergency room all night. And I was afraid to tell the authorities that he hit me. I was afraid. I was just, really afraid at that time. So the fear set in. And meanwhile, the surgeon came out and he said, you're going to need reconstructive nose surgery.
Oh
That's
my.
how bad I was.
Oh.
But thank God it was not more than that because I could have had a concussion and I was hooked up on IV. So that was like, that was like a really bad experience for me. And that's what started it as soon as he hit me. But I was afraid because women feel ashamed to share, to even tell the authorities because they feel ashamed that the police are going to put them down or whatever. They're going to, whatever. So the abuse, then after that, the verbal abuse went on for another, I would say, 8 years, on and off, on and off.
Wow.
So when he finally decided, I had my surgery and I was bandaged up for a week. And then I decided to go look for work. I said, at that point, I said, that's it. That's it. I said,
Wow.
yeah. So that was that was probably, I would say, the low point. It was mid-December, right before Christmas. And that was like the low, low point of my life.
So can I just interrupt you for a second just to ask it? So from the time that you guys met until this happened what was that, like 10 years or and
It
so
was
was
about 10 years, yes.
and so that when you saw the change start to happen in him, or now that you kind of look back, and do you see any other places where
I
he
saw
could have?
patterns.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
he didn't want to go spend time with his cousins at Christmas. I think it was just jealousy. It was
Mm-hmm.
just jealousy. And he felt that the cousins weren't giving him enough attention because when, we would have people over, he would always, or we would go out, he would want to have all the attention on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so did you have, so I know that you were, excuse me, you were afraid, which is
Right.
what happens with most women because you didn't leave after he beat you.
No,
Was
I did
it, was it, tell me about that. Like what were you feeling? Why couldn't you leave? Or why did you feel you couldn't leave? Or did you
I
not
felt
have
that I couldn't leave at that point because of finances. And I think that's probably one of the things that was holding me back. And also, going back to childhood, like I was born in a Greek family and we were
Mhm.
taught to be silent, which is
Yes.
not, no. That's why I
Well,
broke the silence and shared my story.
yeah. That was
Yeah,
going to be, yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, did you have any family that you could go back to? But if you were raised that way, you're kind of probably weighing which is going to be worse at this point, you know?
I'll tell
I'm
you one
sorry.
thing. Yeah. So right after that incident happened, things would be okay for 2 weeks and then an interruption would happen, but he never hit me again. That was the only time he hit me. It
And
was
when you were in the emergency room, so they never questioned you as far
no,
as and never had any suspicion of him hitting you
no,
or
no.
what was the did they I mean, did you tell them or did he tell them what happened to you? What was the
Well, they asked me and I said I fell down the stairs.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, this is a common story,
mm,
with
right,
women, and especially the finance part, like being afraid to leave because they don't have their own income, they don't have anything saved that they can just go or don't have someone they feel that they can go to. So they feel trapped in actually in that, or we can make things better. Maybe next time will be better, that kind of thing.
right,
Right?
exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So later on, what happened was I decided to go out to work in corporate America. So I found a sales position, and that allowed me to be out. And I was traveling, and I was meeting people. I was networking with people. But then he became more resentful and angry because what my goal was to build my identity and to find my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's one of the things that they do. The narcissists do is, and I've had some experience with this. I've never given
okay,
my full story yet, but I've had a short experience with that because I didn't stay. And but what I realized by the time I left and got away, I realized how much of me was completely gone. Like there was just, I felt like there was nothing left of who I was created to be. And it was like, and then yeah, you have to rebuild that and yeah,
yeah,
restore.
I had my confidence went down, my self-esteem went down, everything went down. It was a really horrible
Mhm.
time. But then I, um, and then in 2008, the stock market crashed and we lost over, I would say, $150,000 in savings out the window because the market
Wow.
crashed. So that even put more of a strain on things. So that's why I was like working. I said, I have to go out there. I got to do something now because I'm not going to stay in my marriage.
Mhm.
And, I didn't care at that point what anyone thought of me, my family and everything, but my family did come to support me. They did, recognize the fact that he was, a bully, a narcissist. And so I filed for divorce in May of 2010. And I was looking to move, to explore Saratoga Springs, New York, where I live now.
Yes.
So as soon as I made a plan first. So the first thing that I always say is make a plan, but
Mhm.
don't tell them, just make the plan.
Right.
And the authorities, the New York State Police and the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, cooperated with me. We worked together. I had a caseworker. I also had a therapist. who I
Okay.
was working with for 1 year. So I made a 1 year plan to leave. And
Mm.
when the divorce papers were filed, he looked shocked, but probably not really. You know what I mean? Just
Mm-hmm.
yeah. We went to court and we drove in separate cars, and my suitcase was already in the car. So I traveled up here right after the hearing, and I stayed for the weekend. I stayed with a friend, and I fell in love with Saratoga Springs. So we went around. We went out to dinner, and I said, "Wow, I could live like this. I could be single again." And then I started to get involved. So I worked on myself, and I still work on myself to this day. But I worked on myself to build up my self confidence and self worth back.
Mm.
I took courses. I did research at the library. I would go to, the local library and, educate myself on domestic violence
Mm-hmm.
and, the repercussions and the harm it does. Because I know that finances play a big role, but I fought really hard to get a settlement. And instead of just rolling over and just playing, you know what I mean, playing the victim,
Mm-hmm.
I took ownership. I said, I'm just going to take ownership. This happened. I can't go back right now, but I can make a plan and work on building myself back up and leaving my marriage and getting divorced and escaping
Moving
safely,
forward.
safely. Because what happened, so I made a 1 year plan, and I decided to join Facebook, and then I became involved in the online community, and then I was building up, my friendships there.
Mm-hmm.
I actually made a trip to Saratoga Springs to go to a networking event, and I did that behind the scenes. Like he did not know where I was. The only
Mm.
people who knew were the authorities, they and my therapist. I told them that I was going here and I'm going to stay and then I'm going to come home and then do all this stuff because there were times when he locked me out of the house
Mm.
and I had to get back in because he changed the locks. Um,
Mm.
so finally he, cooperated with the police so I could get the keys to go in so I could just come and go.
Yeah.
So, which he didn't like, but that's, that was it. So,
Yeah.
uh, I became involved with a health and wellness company that changed my life, and
Mm-hmm.
that kept me occupied. Plus, it put me in a position where I was surrounding myself with leaders and mentors who believed in me. And, there were times where I felt frustrated
Mm-hmm.
and didn't believe in myself, but they were pouring so much into me that I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my goodness. I said, this is yeah, life after divorce is good. And not only that, life after domestic violence, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So I
Mm-hmm.
made a plan to move up here to Saratoga Springs. I was
Mm-hmm.
apartment hunting for 2 months. And finally I found a place, a small 1 bedroom apartment on the other side of town. I don't live there anymore, but I did
Mm-hmm.
live there for 6 years to rebuild myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided to move over here, same landlord, to a 2 bedroom apartment, which I
Oh,
really like. And I use one room as my office. So I've lived here, I think for 6 years. For 6 years.
wow.
So, I have a lot of ambition and I have a lot of, my calling and true purpose is, first of all, I started my podcast. It'll be 4 years, December 30th,
Mm.
right before COVID hit
Mm-hmm.
in 2019, because of a vision I had to help women find their voice, raise their voices,
Mm-hmm.
and to help them become free and liberated from domestic violence and to empower them to share their stories, which
Mm-hmm.
has happened. There are women who have shared their real life stories, and now they're coaches, authors,
Mm. That's
speakers.
wonderful.
So you can
Y-
come out of the other side. You can. It
Yeah.
just takes a lot of work. I had to do a lot of inner work too. A lot of,
Yes.
yeah, peeling
Yeah.
off the layers. Yeah.
You can't just leave and then expect everything to be wonderful. And
Mm.
um, by the way, so we're gonna post the links that, to your podcast and all that below,
Good.
so people can check it out. But what were you, I mean, I kind of know myself what I felt like when you actually got away, you made your break that day. What were you actually feeling?
I felt elated. I felt like I basically went on Facebook and made a huge announcement. That was the first thing. And people were like, what? She did that? I said, mission accomplished, done, deal, all this. And I was like, I was driving because I had to drive 2 hours. So I
Mm,
drove to Poughkeepsie and I hired one of the best lawyers in Dutchess County. And I had to fork out $10,000.
mm,
The first 5,000, I had to write a balance transfer check. What happened was that I didn't mention that I did talk about financial. He wrote balance transfer checks against our credit because it was in both names to buy mutual funds, so he could buy mutual funds. And
mm.
I ended up being $50,000 in the hole in
Oh
debt,
boy. Mm,
almost homeless. Like basically, I was sleeping in people's houses, couches,
mm,
motel rooms. It was just, but that's just the way my life was for 1 year, living like a gypsy. But
mm-hmm,
having that feeling, it was like it was a breakthrough.
mm-hmm,
It was
mm-hmm,
a breakthrough. And I remember, driving back home and I was involved with this health and wellness company, and then someone decided to sign up under me. And
mm.
I rank advanced the same day. I'm like, this is too good to be true.
You needed that. You
But I
needed that.
needed that. I needed that.
Yes.
And I rank advanced. I ranked up in the company, and the company was Beachbody at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So um, the next month, I flew to LA. In June, I flew to Los Angeles for my first conference. And that was an experience I will never forget.
Mm-hmm.
That was an experience. So you see, there's life after domestic violence. There
Yeah.
is life. As long as you are willing to put in the work and not play the victim, because guess what? There's only so long that you can play the victim. You
Mm.
have to stop. You have to surrender your pride and ego. I did not complain. Just basically, I just put my head to the ground and went to work.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I like the fact that you had a plan. I mean, you really had a plan. Like for me, I
Mm.
knew that my plan was, and I didn't deal with physical abuse. Mine I called religious narcissism. And it was
Oh,
only for 9 months. So I knew, I'm a certain age when this happened. This is only 3 years ago. And I
okay.
said, I looked at it and said, am I going to live the rest of my life like this? I don't have that much time left, to be honest with you, right? I'm,
Right.
67 years old. And I said, no, I, I can't live like this. There were, like I said, just stripped of who I was, everything. And it just
Mhm.
kept, the noose kept just getting tighter and tighter. My plan was I had a friend who had a room, and I also knew, that I had family around me. And so it just gathered up as much as I could and drove back, left stuff. I really, I had just, and I won't go through my whole story, but I had just sold my house that I had where I got rid of almost everything. So I pretty much came back with, the clothes on my, clothes that I had
I
that I
know,
could
that was
stick in my
me.
van.
When I moved up here, the clothes on my back, old furniture, and
Mm,
then,
I
a
didn't have
couple of
any
months ago,
furniture.
I know, but
I
that
took
was better,
my work
right?
stuff, my files, and the still stuff. Yeah, but I like that you had this plan and that you actually worked with the authorities and the authorities worked with you, and that was positive for you. What would you say to someone, and I know this happens with men as well, but
Oh, yeah.
what would you say to someone who has maybe been in a long time marriage or relationship, and they're realizing, either they've had physical abuse or they have had the verbal abuse and mental anguish. Their first step And how do you get the courage? How do you get the courage to go to leave?
It comes from within.
Hmm.
And I know that a lot of women have asked me that. That courage comes from within. Like it took time. It didn't happen overnight.
Hmm.
So, um, but once I mustered up the courage and I woke up one morning and, a friend of mine recommended this lawyer, I said, what good is the money if I'm miserable? First of all, I'm miserable. You know what I mean? Just like
Hmm.
really. And I said, instead, because pretty soon, guess what? People are not going to listen to you complain.
Hmm.
You have to take action. So I just made up my mind. I said, I'm going to file for divorce. My parents supported me. I had to borrow some money from them at the time so I could, live
Hmm.
and, so I could go out and eat because I didn't eat at home. I was always out. So, um, but I just mustered up the courage. I said, what good is the money if I'm miserable? This how it's no longer serving me. I'm being abused, I'm being verbally abused. And at that
Hmm.
point, he was having mental health issues. He was taking medication.
Hmm.
Um, and it just went on a downward spiral. So I said, I'm not going to live like this anymore.
Yeah, you have to make that decision.
Right. You
You
have to
know,
make that decision. Right.
there
Exactly.
there's a common thread that runs through every interview that I've done so far, and that is a mindset. Like in everything, whether
Right.
people had health issues or, domestic issues, what relationship issues, mindset. So talk a little bit about that because I know
Yes. The
you've
mindset
seen.
is crucial
Mhm.
because for a long time, I was in a victim mindset. I was in a scarcity mindset. So, the tools that I've learned and implemented through personal development and coaching and mentoring, I have implemented into my coaching program for domestic violence survivors. So, I take them from a place of overwhelmed, anxious, um, feeling helpless
Mhm.
to stepping into their own divine identity and truth, because finding
Empowerment.
yourself is crucial. I learned to love myself
Yes.
because when you love yourself first, you're able to love others. There's no way that you can get divorced and then jump into another relationship. That is a huge mistake because
Yeah.
you haven't completely healed from those wounds. And unfortunately, what I see a lot of women just going after men and they're broken. You can't,
Mm.
there's no way you can't. There's no way.
No, you need
Nope,
to take,
nope.
yeah, you need to take the time. And that's what I've taken the last 3 years to really work on
Yeah,
myself. And so, when I look back on that time period, and again, I didn't deal with physical abuse, but I look at it as I go all the way back. And this is one of the things that my counselor helped me to figure out was because you attract that other person. And what was it
right,
in me that attracted that? And then, working through that and continuing to work on, other parts of me for the last 3 years. And it takes, I mean, I only went through that for 9 months, but if you've been like in a relationship for years and have been listening to these things, these words that are hurtful and that, it takes a long time because even now I'm still like, even after 3 years, I'll still hear some of those
oh,
words, but I have to take them captive and cast them aside, right? Like,
right, exactly, exactly,
so,
exactly. And it's a mindset shift. It's a huge mindset shift. Now, I was married for 23 years.
mm,
That is half, that was half of my adult life.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So I had to go back. There was a lot of uprooting. I hired a mentor 4 years ago. There was a lot of uprooting. There were still things that were holding me back. So he helped me uncover those blocks. So you just reach the point where you just push fear out the window, push it out, just push it out. And we have to remove these walls and blocks
Mhm.
that are preventing us from living the life that we truly deserve to live. So he taught me about self-love. And I had done that before anyways. Like
Mhm.
even during, like before I filed my divorce, I would go out for dinner by myself. That's loving on yourself. You got to love on you first. You come first.
Mhm. Yeah, I hear
And
that's a common thing.
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with going for therapy. I've gone for therapy. I actually went for therapy for a year, and my therapist had gone through domestic violence, so she was like, she was unusual because she actually walked in my shoes at one point. So she gave me tools and strategies. She said to go out by yourself, do this, get
Mhm.
involved in organizations, do this,
Right.
and that helped me tremendously.
Yeah, and you have to, as you're talking about getting over the fear, you have to desire that change more than you are, more than the fear. In other words, my desire to make a change, to change myself, make a change in my life has to
Mm.
overcome the fear that I have to do it.
Right, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
so that's really important. And the other common thread that I see when I talk to people is that they had other people around them. That they had people who encouraged them, just like I did, you did. I mean, it's so important because we really cannot do things on our own. We have to. We're
No,
made for community. So we have
mm,
to have other people around us. And even if we feel like there's no one around us, family or even our friends, if we're somebody like that, doing what you did is like stepping out, overcoming the
right,
fear and getting involved in something
mm,
and overcoming that fear and then finding that support is really, really important. So,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Building a community. So, like I was, out there, I was actually getting involved with the church again. And, so that made me feel good, just
Hmm.
creating outlets for yourself, developing friendships. And if you're passionate about something and you want to start a business, I would highly recommend starting a business.
Hmm.
Because I remember when I moved to Saratoga Springs 14 years ago, I had about $2,000 in my bank account and I had made a security deposit in the first month's rent. So it can be done. You
Hmm.
can rebuild your life after domestic violence, and it's a self discovery process. And that's what I cover in my coaching program for domestic violence survivors. I take them through a 9 week, it's a self paced 9 week
Hmm.
course that
Okay.
takes them from point A to point B, meaning from feeling lost, overwhelmed. I journal, I do meditations every morning, I exercise every morning. So I have like a structured schedule early in the morning. I'm up, for the most part before 6 a.m.
Hmm.
because you have to get grounded first. You have
Hmm.
to get grounded first, your mind, not
Yeah,
turn on the TV and watch the news. That's only
exactly.
going to put you in a bad mood.
Yeah.
And how you start your day is how you end your day. So make sure that you have a self-care routine in place.
Hmm.
You know how long mine is? From 5:30 until 8.
Hmm.
My phone's in quiet mode. Do not disturb. Actually, I've learned this, to protect my peace and to,
Hmm.
have time for myself because I'm always talking, I'm always talking to women. So my alarm,
Boundaries.
my do not disturb goes on from 10 p.m. Eastern time to 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
So
Well, one of the things that I learned, one of the biggest things, and this was something that came from my childhood days, was to set boundaries.
that's exactly
And
what I was
that's one of the biggest things that came out of my experience. And, again, having the right attitude and having the right mindset of, looking back on that and not because I've gone through this, and maybe you have too, I don't know, but going through this phase of, I should have known, I should have seen this, I should have seen that, the red flags were there. What was wrong with me? Why didn't I see? I went through all of that. Like I could have saved, I brought all this trouble on myself. But as I continued to work on myself and began to see things, I realized, the way that I look at it is it was a big learning experience for me. And it was something that I needed to overcome. That's another thing that you talk about, we are overcomers.
We
And
all
I needed to
yes.
overcome this inability in me, or whatever it was, that I could not set the boundaries. I learned how to do that. And that was a lifetime achievement, accomplished. It's something that needed to be done, and my faith is very strong. I believe in the creator who orders our steps. And I
Mm,
believe that, he works in us. And that was something that needed to be worked out of me. So I look back at that time period, and I say, okay, well, this is what I learned from this, and remember that, not
remember that, exactly.
not to repeat the same things, right?
Exactly, exactly.
So, well,
Yes.
I have so enjoyed our time together. What would, as a closing summary or statement,
Sure.
to people, speak to the people who are struggling right now with this?
Okay, so if you're struggling, there's hope. No one can take that away from you. There is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. So when you have hope, um, make sure, like when you have hope, that is going to help you heal from trauma. And also, my message is to get out of your own way. And if you still feel victimized, seek out help because it takes a village. You cannot do this alone. So
Mhm.
don't even try it. It's not going to work. Focus on empowering yourself, focus on building your self confidence and self worth back. So this way, you know who you really are. Because I know for me, that was a big turning point. I surrendered my pride and ego. I drew a line in the sand and I sought help. I sought mentorship.
Mhm.
I had a mentor and I had a therapist with whom I worked with, and make sure that you have a plan of action in leaving your abuser because the most danger happens, you ready? After you leave. So be very, very careful. Make sure you have a protective order in place like I did. So,
Mhm.
in fact, when I moved up here to Saratoga Springs, my protective order was extended for another couple of months just to be certain that everything, was calm and everything worked out. So he never, tried to find me or come up here. So travel here. So that was a huge
Mhm.
blessing. There was no turning back. After
Yeah.
I left, there was no turning back. So have
And
hope.
that's important. I just say, I don't
Thank
want to
you.
cut you off, but that is really important there. There's so
Mm.
many people go back. Uh,
Right, right. Do
um,
not go back because you will lose respect. You will not get any help from the police. And they even told me that. They told me that. They said if you decide to rescind the protective order, don't expect us to come and help you. That that makes sense. The
yeah,
sergeant told me. I said, that's fine. I'm not going to rescind it
yeah. So that's really important. Yeah.
because they'll try and talk you out of it. They'll
Mm-hmm.
apologize. They'll do all these things, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, then the same thing, the same cycle will happen. So
The
do
cycle.
not go back to the abuser. Once you leave, that's it.
Cut it
Because
off.
you have
Yep.
your own life and you deserve to live a life filled with abundance and love. And that will happen to you. That will happen.
Yes. Well,
So
wonderful. Thank you,
thank you.
Angeline, so much. It's just so encouraging to me to hear your story and to hear how you overcame and you are doing well. And so thank you so much for doing this. And again, everybody, I'm going to be putting her links below so that you can get in touch with her, go check out her podcast, whatever, if you need coaching. we do hope that you'll reach out to her, and don't forget, everybody, to hit the thumbs up and like, comment, subscribe, share. And I'll tell you, this is just like opened up for me now. Like, first I couldn't get going. I had nobody wanted to share. And now I'm lining up interviews one after the other. So stay tuned for the next one. I'm not sure which one it's going to be yet, but this will be up soon. So yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks again, Angeline.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you.